So, the question I have today is, what are you reading? I want to share some of the things that I'm reading and then see if we can't find out what you're reading. Let's talk about that after the intro. Welcome to my journey of self discovery, life balance, career success, and business creation. This podcast works to answer the question of how successful professionals like us stop drifting and get focused on keeping our careers and businesses growing rapidly while having a full, balanced, and vibrant life that we absolutely love. What we call the Third Power Life. And this is the Third Power Life Podcast. All right, I am an avid reader. I love to read. I love books. I do some audiobooks, but most of the time I actually prefer to read. And it's one of those things where, if I can get like a really good hardbound book, that's actually my favorite. You take something like one of these, Brandon Sanderson, it's a Mistborn hardback book. You just smell that. It's just fantastic. And this is a nice one, leather-bound book, right? But then a lot of times, we are using our devices. I really like that because I can have my entire library right there in front of me, or with me anytime. So the question I have is, what are you reading? So I wanted to share a few things that I'm reading right now because I enjoy nonfiction, right? I usually do sci-fi fantasy. That's, the Brandon Sanderson, right, is my my favorite nonfiction author. And so I've read a lot of his stuff quite a bit. But right now, the series that I'm reading is the Throne of Glass series. It was a friend of mine that turned me on to that. So I'm on almost halfway with book 2. And I think there are 8 books in that series, something like that. I always love series because I'll go back to back, right on. One of the other fun things that I do is, like with Brandon Sanderson, his Stormlight Archive got another book coming out, I believe at the end of this year, December. I've already pre-ordered. And I will reread the whole series when a new book comes out, which can be interesting sometimes. Like when The Wheel of Time, that last book came out, it was the 14th book. So I read 13 books to be ready for book 14. Anyway, it's one of my little quirks. So I do love a good, fiction book. All right. And Brandon Sanderson, if you're not familiar with him, fantastic fiction author, a lot of fantasy. So Mistborn is where I suggest you start, which happens to be this book. You don't have to start with the leather-bound, just saying. Now, part of the thing is that's my time to relax and just have some fun, right? A lot of times I'll do that, to get ready for bed, paper book whenever possible before bed. But I also like to read nonfiction, right? Right now I am going through again Tony Robbins' Moneymaster the Game. Some very interesting info in here. Tony Robbins, always a favorite. Of course, every day, I think we've talked about this ad nauseum on the thing. I read my daily Stoic every day. And so it's going through finding, what do I want to learn? Where do I need to put some of my focus in, either, how am I helping the people that I'm serving, or where do I need some help? How can I help be a better steward, right? How do I make the world a better place? And I do that by feeding my brain, right? That's, the second layer of self-mastery, foundation, spiritual, the framework, mental, right? It's, what are we learning? How are we learning to control our emotions? How, all of that. That's really important, as much as working out in the manifestation of the physical body. How are we feeding our minds? And, I love a good podcast, right? I have a whole number of podcasts that I listen to on a regular basis, a lot around technology and artificial intelligence, which, by the way, if you're interested in knowing more about artificial intelligence and how I use it, because I use it extensively, I use it, probably a dozen or more times a day, let me know, because I think I might like to do a series of episodes about artificial intelligence. But, I've got, self-improvement podcasts. I've got, I love Star Talk with Neil deGrasse Tyson, a bit of optimism with Simon Sinek. So there are a number of different podcasts that I do, and it's fantastic. I love audio. I've got, I think, a whole library of Audible books. So that when I'm on a long drive, I will a lot of times put on an audiobook and listen to that. But I feel like there's something special about picking up a book and reading it, right? There's something about it that's just special. And I really like that. So my admonition to you is to read. And what I would really like is to know, what are you reading? What are some things that you would suggest for me, right? What do you like? What's interesting? Both fiction and nonfiction, right? I read a pretty wide variety, but I would really like to know what you're reading. So put it in the comments. Let me know. Let's get a little dialogue going, and I'd love to add some things to my to read pile. So anyway, I heard leaders are readers, right? Something like that. Anyway, reading, very, very important way to live your life to the third power. So until tomorrow, my friends. Thank you for listening to the Third Power Life podcast. Before you go, one quick question for you. Where are you on the path of life? Are you just drifting through your life? Are you fully in command, somewhere in between? Well, you can find out where you are now by taking my new Commander Survey. It will tell you where you are on your growth journey and how to move yourself to the next level. You can find the link on the screen or in the show notes. Now, all I want to know now is, where do you stand?